What is up YouTube? We're back for another video, but this time I'm not going to be riding my bikes. And I'm here to discuss a topic that I've been asked about quite a few times since our trip to Canada with Chris. How much we spend, is it expensive to get there, what do you need to plan for, all of that, what does it involve to get there. So I thought that it would be cool to break down how much we spent on every single thing, what you could potentially save more money on, you could do different things. So, throwing some of the numbers out, we spent 7 days in Whistler and then we spent 2 weeks in Squamish. I think it was 16 days. So in total, we were traveling for 24 days. We went in September and we came back right at the start of October, and we had booked flights by February. The accommodation was, we had deposited for the accommodation from March. The last few things that we had to do prior to leaving Northern Ireland was exchanging some cash for Canadian dollars. We had a travel insurance. Yeah, other than that, the rest was all done on arrival, and that was, hiring a car, petrol, food, and I suppose souvenirs, anything else that we needed or wanted to buy. So starting from the total cost, we spent £4,550, or at least that's where I spent. Chris must have been around the same. These trip could have been cheaper. We didn't really look at how much we spent when we were out there. We got tattooed, we bought loads of things to bring back home, we went for nice meals. So if you really wanted to make it as cheap as possible, you could probably take some note out of some of these things and make it cheaper. But this is how we did it. We got the flights early in February and we flew from Dublin to Vancouver. We stopped, I think it was in Washington or Chicago, and then we hired a car from Vancouver airport over to Whistler. That was our first stop. So getting from Dublin to Vancouver was £724. That was return both ways, and then to bring the bikes on the plane with us was £166. That was both ways as well. And that was something that we couldn't book online, so we had to just arrive to the airport on the day that we were leaving and pay cash for the bikes, and the same on the way back. So that was a bit uncomfortable because we didn't know whether we were going to have any issues with the airline, but thankfully everything was fine. Then we had accommodation in Whistler. As I said, it was 7 nights in Whistler. That was $445. Then we moved over to Squamish where we spent 16 nights, and the 16 nights in Squamish were £1,400 each. Now it sounds like it's a lot of money. It works out at just over £100 per night. Saying that, we didn't need to rely on having a vehicle for traveling from our accommodation to the trails. We were cycling from the place that we were staying to the trails every day, back and forth, so we did not need a car. And then we had a beautiful apartment where we had barbecue, we had a nice room each, nice kitchen, we were not sharing, amazing views right at the bottom of the trail. So if you're thinking about going somewhere cheaper, firstly there's not so much selection, but if you're going cheaper, make sure that you don't have to hire a car, otherwise your overall cost is going to go up a lot. Travel insurance, we went with Snowcard, and because mountain biking is classified as an extreme sport, I paid £240, and then I exchanged £760 into Canadian dollars, so I had money in my pocket, and I ended up using more as well, just a regular credit card. But if you can, try to make the exchange of cash here before you leave, otherwise every time that you make a transaction or that you try to take cash out of an ATM, you will probably be charged a bigger commission from your bank. So you're better off taking cash with you, and if I was to do this again, I would take a lot more cash and stop using my credit card or debit card. As per food, souvenirs, car hire, so we had we rented the car from Vancouver to Whistler, and then we brought it back, and then from Whistler to Squamish, and then we brought it back again. So that was 2 cars, all the food for the trip, and we were eating reasonably well. During the day in Whistler, we were not going back to our accommodation to cook, we were just eating outside, so like pizza or a hot dog, whatever. When you're tired, you just want to fill in the tank, so we were getting a hold of whatever we could. Then we bought loads of souvenirs, especially I don't know, I bought, like you can see I have a hat here, but I bought t-shirts, I bought stuff to decorate in the house, I brought presents for friends and my parents and my wife. We got tattooed, so that's part of the budget, even though don't need it, but I suppose we spend that money. So food, souvenirs, car hire and others, which includes quite a few things. That was £524. Then we had the 4-day pass, the forfeit for 4 days in Whistler was £204. So we could say that was a big chunk. Something else was we had to spend, or I spent £87 on clothes due to issues with the airline. When we got to Vancouver, we were due to lift our checked baggage and our bikes, but it didn't arrive, so we only had our hand luggage, which was just a little rucksack, and I had my GoPro, my laptop, my passport, my wallet, and a jacket, and nothing else. For nearly 72 hours, our bikes and our baggage didn't arrive. So the first few days, all we did was walk around Whistler Village. We bought souvenirs, we were stressing over our bikes not arriving, and we bought some clothes. I bought some just because I had nothing to wear other than one set of clothes for the next 4 days. As well, we did consider renting bikes because we figured out, as the airline was delaying bringing our bikes, every day that we were not riding our bikes, we were wasting money technically. So we thought, let's hire bikes, and we were going to have, for the third day in Whistler, downhill bikes. It was about, I think it was $230 Canadian dollars bike for the day. Then on top of that, you have to include some sort of protective gear, so you'd be talking around $300 Canadian dollars per day. Thankfully, the night before we were going to ride, our bikes arrived. So we ended up building our bikes at like 4 a.m. We finished, and then we were the first guys in the lift. That brings me to the total of £4,550. How could you make it cheaper? You could try to travel by bus from Vancouver to Whistler and from Whistler to Squamish. That would make it a lot cheaper. I think the bus was about $32. If you can plan these ahead of time, you're gonna save easily $100 per trip. Apart from that, if I was to do it again, I would make sure that I arrive to my riding destination and that I leave a buffer of 1 or 2 days before I actually start riding bikes. And you might be thinking that this is a bit of a waste of time, but given the experience that we had, missing 3 days worth of riding in Whistler, firstly, it was very frustrating, very stressful as well, but I would rather know that I have spare time, that worst case scenario, if the bikes are delayed, I can spend a day or two, as we did, buying souvenirs, walking around, getting to know the town, whatever, and then I'm ready to ride. And most likely is that your bikes will not get delayed, nothing will be lost, and you have 2 extra days of riding. When it comes to spares, I thought that I needed to take tires, brake pads, loads of things. Turned out that I didn't even wear, in nearly 3 weeks worth of riding, a set of pads. My tires were fine, the bike was in reasonable condition, and the price of spares when you get over to Whistler or anywhere else is pretty much the same by the time you convert it to pounds or to euros. So it's not worth taking extra weight or risking taking loads of stuff. If I was to go again, I would take nothing other than my bike and tools, obviously. Another way that you could make it cheaper is you could decide that you're not going to eat outside at all, and you would just take a little backpack with you, pack your sandwich, pack your lunch, and then come back and have dinner in the accommodation. That will save you, I would say, over the course of a week, easily $100. And then the one thing I would say you could definitely save money on is the accommodation. So if you were to go with a couple more people, it was just Chris and I this time, but if we were to go with a third person or a fourth person, you could get slightly bigger accommodation and split costs as well, so it would potentially work out cheaper. So just making a rough calculation, I reckon that you could bring these costs down by £500 roughly. You could easily make the trip down to £4,000, and that is still for 3 weeks. I think if you were going down for the likes of 2 weeks, you could get close to £3,500, £3,300. But to be honest, after the experience we had, I wouldn't go for any less than 2 weeks, just for the fact that you're going to be traveling for so long. Flights are expensive, it takes a lot of effort to get there. I might as well get an extra week and spend more time. Yeah, what can I say? It was really an eye-opener going to Canada and riding so much. One of the things that I thought that I needed to do prior to the trip was to be as fit as I could be, as fast and as strong as I could be. And then I realized that I was going to improve so much more when I got over there, and I was going to get fitter and stronger just by riding, that you don't really need too much preparation. Obviously, make sure that you are fit and reasonably healthy, so you will enjoy it more. But don't panic, just go. Enjoy, you will learn so much, you will get stronger, you will get faster immediately, and don't rush it going into the gnarly trails straight away, because the staff over there is beyond the level that we are used to here in the island. So yeah, if I could say anything, is dial it down, warm up on your blue trails, and then work your way up to red, blacks and double blacks, but definitely don't rush it and be very respectful of the mountain, because some of the trails out there are proper technical and yeah, they can catch you out. So if you have any questions about the trip, about what accommodation we used, about who we flew with, I don't know, anything that you want to consider, send me a text on social media, put it on the comments below, and yeah, stay tuned. Now we have a few more weeks of racing, enduro and downhill. We have downhill nationals coming up in 4 weeks by the time you're seeing this, so stay tuned. We'll have quite a few videos on the pipeline, so see you in the next one.